Hello, welcome to another episode of Unlocked. I'm Scott. Today we're talking to Rachel Cooke, and she is a super accomplished, super fun person that is going to teach us a little bit today about creating employee experiences and navigating change and all types of things. She's the founder of Lead Above Noise, and there they specialize in retaining, engaging, and developing talent. Rachel has been named by Inc. magazine as one of the top 100 leadership speakers. She also has her own show, podcast. You can find that. It's called Modern Mentor. So on all the podcast stuff, you can find that. She's been in Inc. magazine, Thrive Global, Bloomberg, Fast Company, Business Insider, Huffington Post. She's also got a master's degree in organizational psychology from Columbia University and her bachelor's degree in human development from Cornell. So yes, she's got something to bring. So I hope you enjoy the show and get as much out of it as I did. Here we come, Rachel. Rachel, it is so wonderful to talk to you today.
Scott, I so appreciate the invite. I'm super excited to be here.
And I mostly got you on here because you love my About page so much. Thanks. I'm just kidding. That's not the reason.
It's charming. You should own it.
Oh, okay. I'll own it. I think it's a little long sometimes, but it's okay. People can go there and read it if they want to. But really, I want to hear about what your thoughts are on leadership. We were talking just a second ago, which we didn't record that part. Whoops. But this philosophy you have about leadership, and I want you to just kick it off with that because it's gold.
Oh, thank you. So we were just talking a minute ago about the fact that so many of us, like the royal us, the royal we carry this assumption that a lot of the important things that need to happen in an organization, change, development, employee experience, they have to start at the top. They have to start in the executive suite. And of course, it's wonderful when things do start at the top, but it's really not a requirement. And I am a firm and diehard believer in that anybody within an organization at any altitude, whether you're a leader, a team leader, you're not a leader at all, we all are empowered to have real influence over the experiences we have. There are always things that are within our control and things that aren't. And when we are able to be really thoughtful and intentional about what is within our locus of control, I think we're all empowered. And frankly, I think we all have a responsibility to really help shape the experiences that we have at work.
So let's talk about control a little bit, because now you poked a button. What do you think is the issue with control? And what it causes, the feelings of lack of control? Is it really a lack of control, or is it our mindset about control? Like, what do you see out there when you're talking with your clients and working with them, and this issue of control versus not having control?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, there are a lot of people out there who, will say things to me like, as an example, oh, my company has this leadership development program, but I haven't been nominated to be in it. So, I'm not getting any leadership development. And yet when I ask them, are you walking around seeking feedback? Are you being intentional about who you're networking with in your company or in your industry? Have you sought out a peer mentor? Have you sought out a sort of an accountability partner? Are you listening to podcasts? Are you reading books? There are a million ways that you can get additional development or investment in your own leadership skills. That's one example, right? I see people all the time talking about, I'm just frustrated because my company is so bad at communication. They don't communicate things broadly. I never have the information I need. Well, are you asking good questions? Are you getting time on your leader's calendar and asking them directly for information? Again, are you being intentional in who you're networking with? Are you using your company intranet? And again, I don't want to take away the responsibility of those in executive roles. Absolutely. Executives should be focusing on developing their teams. They should be focusing on communicating important information. And yet, if they aren't doing that, if you're not in an executive seat, there are still things, there are always actions that you can be taking to move in the right direction.
So it sounds to me like you're turning it back and making me responsible for stuff, Rachel. Like, but what if I don't want to be responsible? I just want to blame everybody all the time for all my stuff and all the things that are the problem in the world and my company.
I appreciate how you are kind of playing that role, but a little bit, that is what I see. I feel like we have collectively kind of stepped into this zone of a little bit of disempowerment, right? We keep waiting for something to change. We're waiting for our companies to fix everything, our leaders to fix everything. And again, they do have a responsibility, but also you as the employee have a responsibility for making sure leaders know what you need. There's so much going on right now, right, in the vernacular. We've been hearing about the Great Resignation. Now the conversation is all about quiet quitting, and whatever you make of these phrases, the reality is people are they're kind of burnt out. They're kind of disengaging. They are putting in less extra effort. And the reality is, if you are one of those people who is finding yourself disengaging, are you letting people know? Are you asking for help? Are you raising flags? Are you letting your leader know you have 1,400 things on your plate and you need help prioritizing? Are you letting your leader know that you are working 17 hours a day and you really need to set some boundaries? If you're feeling unappreciated, have you let people around you really see some of the important things you've accomplished? Not in a braggy way, but in a, hey, let's celebrate this together kind of way. So I do think you are not solely responsible, but you have a responsibility for your own sense of fulfillment and success at work.
Amen. You do. And that I agree with you 100%. We cannot take the responsibility away from the others that are in charge of communicating vision and what's going on. But here's what we have to do is moving from critique to curiosity, right? Am I asking the right questions? Am I doing the right things that I need to be doing to help maybe spark that? Maybe they're not aware of the stuff that they're not communicating enough. Maybe some people in the organization don't care about that type of communication, but you do, right? And so I love what you said. I think that personal responsibility is where it starts, though, and going from that. So if we talk about that control, not feeling in control idea, and then we move into the arena of change, that's something that I've heard a lot of my clients talking about lately, and something I've spoken about lately. I'm interested in your idea of that change arena that we're in, and how some people are just so faced with that right now. How do leaders lead teams effectively through change? Because there's a lack of control in that arena.
Yeah. So I have been speaking a lot on leading through change and uncertainty. And we've all rebranded the conversation. It used to be leading through change. Now it's leading through uncertainty and change, leading through ambiguity and change. But the reality is, the way that I think about it is that change used to be a choice, right? That we made. We decided with intention, we are going to restructure. We are going to chase after a new industry. We're going to refine our strategy. And then as leaders, we would make the choice. And then we had the luxury of creating a plan with intention, heading towards a clear North Star. Now change is everything. It is pervaded everything. Nothing feels same. Very little feels predictable. And so what it takes to lead our teams and ourselves through change has changed significantly, right? And I think that there's really a significant mindset shift that needs to happen. I think one of the things that leaders, in my experience, where leaders are struggling a little bit is in the need to recognize that as the leader, your job is no longer to be the smartest person in the room or the person with the plan, because most of the change that you're leading your teams through is coming at you. You don't have more knowledge or insight than your teams do. And so your job as a leader now is to release your need to know, to have the answers to all the questions, to feel like the smartest person in the room, and lean instead into a space of humility and curiosity and empathy. So as a leader, I think it's your job And Skot, we talked a little bit in the beginning about how you do a lot of work around purpose. And I am a big believer in the importance of purpose at work, not in a spiritual way, but in a very practical way. As the leader, helping your team be really clear on your purpose, right? Where you need to get to, what impact you need to deliver. And then collectively utilizing the insight and the wisdom and the experience of your team to collaboratively build your plan forward. So I think, what I'm encouraging leaders to do now more than ever is to pause and to do some reflecting on what we've learned in these past couple of years, right? We are sitting on gold mines of insight and wisdom. We've had to innovate in so many different ways, and we have reinvented and created so many new things that we haven't even taken the time to recognize that we've done because we've just been running forward so fast. And so I'm really encouraging leaders to remember, you don't have to know all the answers. You have to be the one asking the right questions. You have to be inviting your team into a conversation, being really clear about what impact we need to deliver, and then really facilitating some reflective dialogue around what are the amazing things that we've done in the past couple of years that we want to kind of codify and amplify and dial up. What are the things that maybe we did in the moment that served us, but maybe it's time to let go of? And I think really tapping into the hindsight wisdom that is just behind us is one of the most powerful ways to inform a path forward towards change and uncertainty.
Yeah, you talk a lot about the employee experience overall. So how does that play into that idea? How does that leadership style or that leadership mentality contribute to the overall employee experience and building delight within that employee experience and what we're trying to do?
Yeah. So it's so interesting. I love to say that for too many of us, we set the bar on employee experience too low. We think about employee experience as a means of retention. I talk about capturing butts and feet, but I really like to elevate the bar and say, let's aim higher. Let's strive to really encapsulate hearts and minds. So, the goal of the employee experience is to unleash the potential of the talent you've been smart enough to hire. So to answer your question about how does the employee experience feed into my philosophy on change, when I work with organizations on crafting employee experiences, we focus on creating the conditions that allow employees to do four things: to deliver their best work, their best ideas, unobstructed, unimpeded, to develop new skills and capabilities, to connect, to purpose and team and community, to feel belonging, and finally to thrive, right? To feel well and whole. And when teams can deliver, develop, connect, and thrive, that is what adds up to a tremendous employee experience. And also, when you are moving obstructions out of your team's way, you are having meaningful dialogue, you are inviting voices to the table in a real and authentic way, you're inviting a diverse set of opinions and views. That is exactly how you get to what I was just describing about the answer to leading through change, is really tapping into the wisdom and insight of your teams. And so when you create an employee experience that allows your teams to actually do the job you hired them to do, they then become your change leaders and your change champions right along with you.
We all need change champions, right?
Indeed.
They're awesome. They're awesome. So how do you measure those things? So got deliver, developed, connect, and thrive.
Yes.
How do you measure that going into an engagement and then over time? Like, that's kind of a fluffy kind of thing to measure. How do you do that?
Yeah. So it's a really great question. And I have a very mixed relationship with the concept of measurement. A lot of companies will do some sort of like employee engagement survey, right? They'll do a survey year over year and they'll sort of evaluate the results. They'll compare. I have a very strong point of view that a survey gives you data, and that data is relevant, but it's also kind of too late, right? It's measuring something that's already happened. It's answering the question of how did we do this year? And regardless whether you did well or not well, it's done. It's over, right? And so I am a big believer in the power of monitoring over measuring. And so when we talk about delivering, developing, connecting, and thriving, I am a really big believer in using qualitative data, conversations, focus groups, interviews, getting a sense from people of how they're doing, how they're feeling, where their obstacles are, then getting their input and ideas around what changes can we make to turn up the dial in these 4 areas. And then continuing to check in, right? Regular pulse checks, regular points of dialogue, so that you're able to actually course correct in the moment rather than make a change and wait 11 months for your next employee engagement survey to find out whether or not it worked. I think surveys are still great. I think that they are an important check-in point, but I think measurement alone doesn't get you there. When you are regularly monitoring and pivoting and course correcting real time, I think that combined with your annual survey is the way to really think about it.
That's really good. I really like, so monitor over measure, right?
Yeah.
And incorporating those. I mean, and back in my previous life of doing a lot of design and marketing work, right? It was quantitative, qualitative type market research that we would do to gather. Now, and maybe this informs this kind of idea, but we used a lot of some people are like, do we do quantitative first or qualitative first? And it's kind of like, does the quantitative inform the qualitative, or does the qualitative inform the quantitative? And I think you could take that idea and kind of, your own philosophy and incorporate it into this idea of like, well, do we take the data and then use that to shape a plan and a strategy for the future? Sure. Well, we could also just use the qualitative stuff that we're doing now and use that to inform and reinforce the quantitative stuff that we want to ask later. Like, sure, right? Chicken or the egg. So, but I like that idea. How often do you think that leaders should meet with their teams in that way? Like, what do you generally recommend? And is it like an hour-long session that I have with all my team members every 2 weeks? Because that's a lot.
I think it really depends on the leader, the size of the team, the organization. I think it's really easy, to be honest. I think that there's a little bit of an upfront investment in some heavier dialogue, right? I am a big believer in committing to focusing on the employee experience and doing kind of a deep dive into your team's current experience, either yourself or bringing in somebody from the outside and running a series of focus groups and getting a sense of where are we today and where are our opportunity areas and then, you start to execute small changes. And then in terms of that follow through, honestly, Scott, I think it can be whatever you need it to be. I think it's perfectly fair to say, we have a standing weekly team meeting and we're going to spend the first 10 minutes doing a really quick pulse check on everybody. Give me a sense of one thing that's worked this week and one thing we want to try next week. It doesn't have to be a commitment of hours upon hours. When you have that continual open dialogue, your door is open. People know if something happens, they have a great idea, they have an experience that wasn't great, they can come to you and deliver that to you in just a couple minutes. I think it really it sort of lessens the investment of time you need to be making on a regular basis, because when the dialogue is open, it can happen really quickly and efficiently and quite organically in the context of a meeting that's already there.
Yeah, and I read a paper or study somewhere that's they were advocating these 15-minute check-ins every week, where did more to improve employee engagement and overall productivity and whatever they did as a team than did your yearly, one yearly review, or even if you did it every 6 months, right? It was just, there wasn't enough. And it's just the two questions that, I encourage my clients to ask is, hey, what went well this week and what sucked, and you basically said the same thing. It's kind of like, hey, how, and you're not trying to solve the problem right now. It's not a brainstorming, let's like whiteboard how to figure this thing out. It's how do we just get it on the table as a mechanism to talk about this thing, and then we can address it later. So is that kind of what you're talking about?
Yeah. And the one refinement I would put on that is that I love to tell my clients that the employee experience is not one big singular thing. I like to call it a menagerie of moments. And so this idea of, solving the problem, I don't think about the employee experience in that way. I think there's always an opportunity to enhance a moment or to make a moment not a great experience. And so that's the other thing. I think that the annual survey sort of forces the employee experience into the corner of being a big singular thing that we measure once a year. I really believe it's something we are always touching. Every interaction we're having every day within our company is in some way a part of the employee experience. So yeah, I don't think it is a big problem to be solved. I think it is a conversation to always be having.
It's good. What are some other things leaders can do to help develop their people? Like, I mean, because, it's like, yeah, we're responsible for creating an employee experience, but I almost feel like the employees are also in charge of creating an employee experience for each other, right? Like, I mean, the culture is made up of all those people that are breathing the same air and doing the same things together. How do leaders help develop their people so that we together are developing this experience that we all want to be part of?
Yeah, and I think that what you just said is part of the answer itself. I think one of the most powerful things a leader can do is almost democratize the process of development to really create that accountability, give people permission to seek it out on their own, give their teams permission to start a book club or peer mentoring circles. I think the more that a leader can push or share, not push, but share the accountability with everyone on their team. A leader can just create the time and space, putting an hour a week on the calendar in which everybody can do whatever feels the most developmental to them. Go watch a TED Talk, read a book, go do a coffee meeting with someone on a different team. I mean, and, so when leaders create the accountability, they create the space, and then maybe most importantly, they role model it themselves. So when leaders show the humility to ask for feedback, when leaders talk a little bit about what they're doing to learn, what's a great TED Talk that you listen to, what's a great article you've read, just starting to kind of normalize that conversation and show and make it very clear. This doesn't have to be something that you spend hours and hours a week doing. And it's also something that you can absolutely do during the workday. Maybe 15 minutes a day during the workday, we all take a break and read an article or listen to a podcast. Maybe they're listening to your podcast, Skot. But
Oh, well, maybe now that you've been on.
maybe that's my recommendation. But yeah, I think it is about the accountability, making the time and space, and then role modeling it. I think that those are three really, really easy levers for a leader to pull.
Oh, that's really good. All right. You wrote something kind of smart. I'm going to read it. You ready? I don't even know if you remember writing this.
I don't.
Leadership isn't about knowing, but asking, listening, testing, trying, doing, failing, and doing again. They'll learn that momentum always beats inertia. Momentum always beats inertia. So tell me about that. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I think that leadership is a really active thing. And it's not a thing that you go sit in a class and learn how to do. It is a thing you go sit in a class and you learn things. I think that is a really important starting place, but you don't become a leader just by the act of receiving information. You become a leader through the act of receiving it and then practicing it and doing things. And when you don't know exactly what to do, just doing something and seeing if it makes things better or worse, right? If you are not sure how to have a great conversation with your team, you can spend hours and hours reading articles, or you can just be really vulnerable with your team and say, hey, I'm looking to create a space for debate and dialogue. Give me some feedback. What can I do to do that better with you? Just doing something is always better than waiting until you have found exactly the answer. No leader out there knows all of the answers. And even if somebody did in 2019, those answers have largely become irrelevant because the world of work has changed and will continue to change. And so, yeah, I think it's just so important when you're not sure what to do something and see if it made things better or worse.
So be proactive instead of reactive.
And be proactive and be willing to experiment and be honest about it. Hey, team, I'm going to try a new thing today. This might be terrible, might be amazing, but we're going to try it. I just need you to let me know. Did this feel good or did this feel bad?
Yeah. And sorry, John, if, you hate me after this, but I'm just going to try. Right. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, that's it. That's it. So I really appreciate that. Why don't people ask for help more often? Like why, whether it's leadership or people on certain teams, like why don't people ask for help?
I mean, I wish that I entirely knew the answer to that question, but I think it's human nature. I think we're all trying to present a certain image of poise and knowledge and intelligence. And to be honest, I do think that there was a time when that was what organizations were looking for. And that was what organizations were looking for. And that was also what teams were looking for. But I really, really think the tide has shifted. And I think there is so much power in vulnerability. I mean, Brene Brown and all of her research on vulnerability has really shifted the game. You know, there's so much power in being vulnerable and being curious and being willing to ask for help, to role model for people that it's okay to ask for help. But I think that we have a lot of programming that we need to overcome. And I think we're starting to, but I think we still have a lot of work to do, all of us, myself included.
Yeah, that vulnerability thing is hard, right?
So hard.
Because
Mhm.
like I have to show you things that I may not be so proud of. And that's interesting. When I was at a I was speaking at a conference last week in Detroit, and there was another speaker, and he had this exercise where he had everybody, right, and the audience even do this exercise where it was if you really knew me exercise. And he stood on the stage, he's like, and his is probably rehearsed obviously because he's the speaker, but he was like, hey, if you really knew me, you would know this. If you really knew me, you'd know this. If you really knew me, you'd know this. And it was like this. And then he had people in the audience actually stand up and do a, if you really knew me. And it was so impactful, right? To hear that level of vulnerability. Like somebody else may not have done that at the beginning, but they heard other people doing it. And they all of a sudden were willing to lower their wall
That's
and be
awesome. What a
vulnerable,
great
which
exercise.
I mean, it's pretty gutsy, right? Hopefully somebody stands up. But yeah, it was really interesting. So I'm like, huh, that's fascinating.
That's
Like,
awesome.
that vulnerability thing is powerful. Um, so you have your own show that is now going to be famous because my 12 million listeners are hearing about it right now. So tell us about that. What's that about?
Sure. So I host a podcast called the Modern Mentor Podcast. It is a Macmillan quick and dirty tips show. And it is a quick weekly show designed to give people really simple, actionable advice on how to define their own version of success and take a step toward achieving it. So you'll find that these themes of empowerment run through everything that I do. I am not a subscriber to the belief that success only looks one way. For some people, it may be a promotion. For some people, it might be a lateral move. For some people, it might be stepping out. For some people, it might be stepping back in. I think we are all empowered to define what success looks like for us. And then I offer people weekly tips on every topic under the sun around how to navigate and find success in their own career.
Wow. That sounds like a lot of stuff.
It's some stuff. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Um, and where do people find that? Is it on all the
It's
stuff?
everywhere. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts.
That was good. Okay, cool. I love that. And then if people want to get in touch with you, they want to hire you to come speak or do some training or, just like hang out with you because you're super fun to hang out with. Where do people get in touch with you?
Definitely come hang out with me. I think I'm super fun to hang out with. Come find me at leadabovenoise.com.
Wow, that's it.
That was it. And you can subscribe to my newsletter. I've got some free tools and goodies in there. Okay. I've got a page where you can connect with me. I am open to chats and conversations on all of the topics.
That's so cool. Yeah, you are fun. If I was in Jersey, I would come visit you. So
thanks.
That'd be awesome. And yeah, thanks a lot for being on. It's been really, really great. And I value what you do. Your experience is is deep and your knowledge is expansive. And I hope that people got some gold from this. I know I did. And like I said, these shows are a lot of times for me. So I hope everybody else got as much out of it as I did.
Awesome. Thank you so much for inviting me. This was great.
I personally love Rachel's emphasis on personal responsibility and having control when we don't think we have control. There's a lot of things that we push on others, a lot of external circumstances and people and situations and things that are not in our control, and we kind of throw all of our power onto them. But as you heard, everything she does is about empowerment. So her show, the way she speaks, the things she teaches is all about empowerment. And that comes with personal responsibility and accepting that. And that helps us navigate the change things she talked about, developing people and creating employee experiences that people want to be part of and being proactive about those. We often are reactive in what we do as leaders, and we spend a lot of time putting out fires, but that's not the way we want to live our lives. I hope. Like, I don't want to live my life that way. I hope you don't either. Putting out fires all the time is not, unless you're a firefighter, that's not really what I was hired to do. So if you want to drive change, you want to create engagement, you want to create a thriving environment for your people and yourself, be proactive. A menagerie of moments, she calls it. That I love it. She should write a poem about the menagerie of moments. So I love it. I'm grateful for Rachel and the value she added to the show today. If you want to find out more about me, you can go to skotwaldron.com. I've got some free goodies on there. A lot of my shows are on there as well. You can find out more about what I do. You can go to YouTube, subscribe, like, comment, and I would love to see the engagement there. LinkedIn as well. Please find me on LinkedIn. I put a lot of free information, tips, and tricks for you as a leader to engage and to be better and healthier. So thanks everybody for being here on another episode of Unlocked.